You are going to get a special treat today. Today is all about drawing using pen and ink. We're going to talk about the different types of pens, the different types of papers, and some of the do's and don'ts. So welcome to Art Tips, and let's get started. So now we're going to go ahead and describe the papers that you might want to consider and some of the pens that you might want to consider. First of all, I like to always talk to anyone that wants to do art about a substrate. And a substrate is what you actually put your medium on. Paper is what we're going to be using for our pen and ink processes. We have a mixed media piece of paper here, and it's kind of thick. It's a 98-pound piece of paper, and it has a low texture on both sides. Not too bad. This is very good for pen and ink, actually. So if you want to use this one, that would be good. We also have a canvas paper. A canvas paper does have a texture just like a real canvas. So it has a texture, and actually you get the benefit of a tan side and a bright side on the canvas paper. So this will be suitable for pen and ink. The only thing is your ink might fall in some of the creases that are on the canvas paper, which you might not like. This one is a smoother type of paper, so you're going to get nice smooth lines. This one you're going to get kind of strange lines, but it might be something that you like in the artwork. There's also Bristol paper, smooth Bristol. This is my all-time favorite. It's nice and thick. It has good color, nice bright white, nice smooth, no texture on it at all. Okay, but then there's this copy paper stuff. Sometimes people want to use copier paper for their pen and ink processes, and that's not really good. Okay, that's one of the don'ts. The do's and the don'ts we're going to talk about. This is one of the don'ts. The only thing that I use the copier paper for is to sample and make sure my pens are alive. Okay, so we have a few pens here, and these are a Staedtler brand. These come 4 in a pack. Here's my Staedtler brand package. You get 4 in the pack, and they have numbers on the end, and the numbers are very important to understand. The smaller the point number is on the ends, like here's a 0.1, that's going to be a thinner line. Here's a 0.3, where's the 3? There's a 0.3, and then there's a 5, and then there's a 7. The larger the number, the thicker the lines are going to be. Here is a 0.1, you're going to have a nice fine line. Here's a 0.3, your line's going to be a little bit thicker. Here's a 0.5, the line's going to be even thicker. And here's a 0.7, and it should be nice and chunky. Oh, that one didn't come out so chunky. There you go, chunky. So you want to be sure that your pens are all alive. Earlier today, I tried to use one of my Prismacolor pens to get ready for my tutorial here. I can't find my Prismacolor. Oh, here's my I'm sorry, not a Prismacolor, a Sharpie marker. Sharpie markers are nice doable pens too. They only come in one grade when you want a fine tip. These are all fine tips, but they have different grades. This is a fine tip, ultra fine tip, but there's only one grade of them. So this one's pretty dried out, so I can't use that for this demonstration. I just wanted to show you that these do dry out over time, and the way I like to store my pens is upside down like this, so that the ink continues to go to the tip of the pen. So if you have some pens, always store them upside down so that your ink always falls to the bottom. So I'm going to get rid of that pen because it's no good, and we're going to stick with the Staedtlers today. Pigma makes some pens, really nice pens. Micron makes really nice pens. Prismacolor makes really nice pens. I happen to have a set of Staedtlers, so we're going to use those today. Okay, so basically, again, use your copier paper to sample, because copier paper is so thin. If you do a lot of heavy duty work on one side of it, you're going to see through it, and you can probably see through the bleeds that could happen through this kind of paper. You don't want to have the flimsy paper. You do want to have a very nice piece of paper when you're doing your pen and ink drawing. So what I'm going to use is my Bristol, my nice firm sheet of illustration paper. Okay, and we're going to create let's do some circles. Now I'm going to describe a little bit of light logic to you while I'm doing this, so you can understand why you need to use your pen and ink the way you do. So with a pencil, I'm just going to draw a little circle here. Just going to draw a little circle. And with light logic, you need to know which direction your light source is coming from. Here's my light source right there. Okay, Then you're going to have what's called a highlight in this region. You're going to have a middle tone right here, and then you're going to have a crest shadow here, and then you're going to have shading back here, and then you're going to have what's called a casted shadow there. Okay, now I have a little bit of light logic teaching that I'm doing right now. You want to understand where your highlight is, your mid-tone, your crest shadow, and your casted shadow here. We need to learn to build up the shadows or the colors or the darknesses with the pen and ink. It's not the same as pencil. We're using just lines and dots to create the shadows and the shades and the dark tones that you might find. Now, here are my general purpose lines that I like to use. I like to use crosshatch. This is crosshatch. Okay, I like to use squiggles. Okay, I like to use arches, and then my pen is kind of running out a little bit, so I'm going to move to the 3. So I like to use arches. These are also called hatch marks, where they're curved a little bit and they're all going in the same line. This one is a crosshatch. Remember, that's a crosshatch. And this is a squiggle. And this is a hatch, arch line hatch. And this is called stipples. This is very famous. This is a very famous impressionistic style back in the, I believe, 16th century, when artists used to started this with painting. So you can also use pencils, and ink works the best with what's called stippling. Okay, so I have my 4 general purpose lines that I use when I do a pen and ink illustration. So let's go ahead and start off with creating volume in this plain old circle. We're going to make a ball out of it. Okay, so I'm going to start right here in the middle because I know this is where it's going to be the darkest. Oh no, I don't want to use stipple. I'm going to use crosshatch. I'm going to use crosshatch. And sometimes this can take a while, but you want to be patient. This is another way to just kind of meditate with something fun to do. Just be patient. So I'm doing a crosshatch, and you can literally take some of your lines, add an arch to kind of match the circumference of the ball as well. So I'm building up with just lines, and it's the darkest tone right here at the core. And this is called core shadow or crest shadow right here in this area. Okay, and as you move up into the lighter area, because the light source is here, nice and bright here, half tone here, nice and dark right there, you put less lines. You do less lines in this area so that it appears to be brighter. See, the paper is showing up behind the marks, so that looks a little bit brighter right there. You do want to kind of merge it, and my ball looks sort of like an egg shape, but that's okay. The point is to show you how you can use these lines to create these awesome effects. And up here it's really, really bright, so I'm going to be using less lines up here. And again, these pencil marks, they're going to disappear once we finish our textures on the surface. Nice and dark back here, because this is where there's no light on the surface. No light. And you just keep going over and over and over until you get a nice blend from your darks to your light and your light to your dark. Okay, so now down here where I have my casted shadow, you just fill that in as completely as you want, and you can also switch pens at this point to a 7, so you have more coverage. So the do's are, you want to always know your papers. Know what your papers can do and what they can't do. Know your papers. Those are the do's. You also want to pick a really good set of pens that have enough fluid in it to get through your processes. And the don'ts are, don't hesitate. Don't be frustrated. don't be scared to get started, because this is a really fun activity to help de-stress these days. I love drawing. This is my thing. So now I have a really cool shape that looks almost like an egg. And what I'm going to do is leave a little bit of brightness back here, because sometimes you have reflected light in the back, and just make the core shadow nice and dark. So here we go. We have a little bit of an egg shape started. What I'm going to do is erase my lines, because this is a line that I don't need anymore. And because ink doesn't erase, you're safe with just erasing your pencil lines to see your form. So now we have this egg shape done with cross hatching, all cross hatching. You can do the same thing with squiggles. If you do another one, just a real quick one, I'm going to do a small one right here. And I'm going to use my 5 this time. And I'm just going to come right in here and start squiggling, because I know that there's a core right here. And it's in an arch because my light source is right here, okay? So I'm going to do some squiggles. And as I reach the back side of it, I'm going to reduce my squiggle technique a little bit, just because I want it to stay light right back here where there's going to be reflected light. A little bit on Light Logic. And as you move up into the mid-tone, you release and you place your squiggles further apart from each other so that the paper shows through and it looks like it's brighter. And up here in the highlight area, same thing. So back down here where we have a crest, we're going to put more squiggles. We're going to fill it in the core shadow area. And I wouldn't outline your ball in, or whatever shape, in ink, because you can't erase that. You want to just use your technique in those areas to see the boundaries of your shape or your form. And then I have a casted shadow, and I'm just going to fill that in. And you're going to end up filling it in pretty good. So if you don't see squiggle patterns, it's okay with your casted shadow. Just fill it in, fill it in. Just have fun with it. So that's a little bit on how you use your pens with different line types like these, and how you understand how the light logically connects with the shape to create a spectrum of values. Next thing that I want to show you is an image of an owl. And with this owl, you see that these lines are communicating flatness. These straight lines are communicating flatness. Okay, so you'll be using straight lines, you'll be using curved lines, you'll be using curved lines here. So these all communicate nice flat surfaces, and that's really important to know when you're working with creating dimension in something. And now you have these little short hatches in here in different values. That communicates light and dark. Maybe some light is shining on the fur right here, where you're going to see the brighter areas being the higher points and the darker areas being the lower points. Same thing in here. This is a lower area. This is a lower area. This is a lower area. And all this in the front is brighter. It's in the front. So there's going to be another tutorial where we're going to actually draw a face.